we live.
We are
Hi.
live. All righty. Okay, so you want me to give a short introduction?
Yes, of course.
All right, people. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Chand. I'm Shikha is joining, and we are starting this journey again on trying to, basically record stuff on what we kind of call somatic astrology. And that might be a good time to actually just kind of mention very basic about what it means for me, and then Shikha, you can chime in. Uh, so a little bit about me. My name is Chand. I'm an internal medicine doctor who grew up in India and moved here to the US. And eventually, through my own lived experience of chronic illness, I discovered holistic methods and breath work being very important, somatic body work, fascia release being extremely important, and eventually astrology. And that's kind of when me and Shikha started talking about astrology, we figured out that both these things are complementary and how astrology has always been used as a healing modality. And we want to sort of try and play our little bit role in resurrecting that from a somatic perspective, also from an evolutionary perspective, not only for the soul, but for people around the world, and from a liberation perspective. This is not to accumulate wealth. People who want to make a lot of this is not about that. We're trying to liberate the world from oppressive systems. We want to play our part in this. We both have been activist organizers, Marxists, a lot of ists, and we still are. And this is another layer or depth to our being. So anyway, that is what somatic astrology is for me. Is the combination of somatic stuff or somatic breath work, somatic release, somatic experiencing as a healing modality, and evolutionary astrology. I'll hand it over to Shikha.
Thanks. That was a great intro. Hi, everyone. I'm Shikha. I'm based in India, and I am fairly new to astrology. It's been less than a year, like 9 months and now, I think. But yeah, I was not just skeptic, I was like actively against most forms of spirituality. Um, but yes, when you first introduced me and then we talked about this in our first episode back in December, it did like I did get hooked and like, okay, this makes sense. Let's look more into this. And being a compulsive researcher and reader, I did. And I kept digging and digging and digging until I found this very specific practice um, in evolutionary astrology. I think most of Western astrology is very evolutionary in their approach, but the very specific Jeff Green methodology really spoke to me. And then, it led me to, you know, find conversations between astrologers who have followed in his footsteps, um, who are still around. Like Jeff Green has retired, probably not alive. Actually, no one knows what happened to him. No one knows where he is.
Wow.
Yeah, he's
Wow.
vanished.
No, no, no.
Yeah. Oh my God. What if like someone from the Epstein class came after him?
Yes.
But yes, that's another reason why
Shikha,
we
are
want
you
to
able
do
to
this.
center yourself a little bit?
Oh, yeah. How do I do that?
Just, yeah.
Is it
This is
better?
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Is this
Okay.
better?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry. It's like iPad is weird because my camera is not on top. It's not on
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
on
yeah,
the
yeah.
left.
That's better.
Yeah. Um, but yes, so I came to evolutionary astrology in September last year, and it has been life changing for me. It has become my primary mental map for navigating the world, um, and making sense of my behaviors and others' behaviors, and understanding that, you know, with astrology, we really can deduct time from character and character from time. And this, like, being aware of what are my motivations, where are my shadows, what are my shadows, and why shadow work is important. So that's the evolutionary part of it. And I do definitely combine that because the canvas do bring out a lot of visceral reactions, like responses in my body, a lot of anxiety, it's like tightness and tension. And this simple breath work has been really important for me as well. It's breath work and yoga has become like my standard practice because I'm going through some tough transits and everyone is most of the time. It's not like everyone's having a great time or something like that. But it's very important to combine grounding practices as we descend into the underworld, which is what evolutionary astrology is. Like you really have to descend and sit in the fire, purify yourself, alchemize your shadows, and then you rise back up again. So
Wow. Oh, that was a great introduction. Now, thank you for that, and I appreciate, yeah, you sharing that what your practices have been, and I like the analogy of the descent, kind of how I also have envisioned shadow work as a descent. Okay, well, on that note, let's not waste too much time. We are going to start off with some breath work, which I will lead us maybe for 5 minutes, and then we'll start off with the basics of evolutionary astrology or astrology in general.
yeah,
All right, cool. So let's come to a comfortable seated posture, seating position again. See if you're able to keep your back straight. Just aligning the spine. Imagine that the top of your crown is being pulled like a thread. If you're not able to sit, it's okay to lie down. Just find any comfortable posture. Ideally, the spine is straight. If it cannot be, that's fine also. See if your tongue can touch the roof of the mouth. We're just going to start with gently grounding ourselves, just noticing where your body is touching the surface. If your back is touching the chair, just breathe into that. Going down where your hips are touching the surface, your legs, and if your feet are touching the ground. We'll now start with bringing our awareness to our breath. Simplest way is to notice the air moving in and out of your nostrils. Notice how when the air moves in, it's cooler. Now it's warmer when it moves out. Just noticing and being aware of your breath. We're not trying to change our breath. We're not judging it. We're not analyzing it. Imagine your breath is like a river. It just flows. Imagine you sitting at the banks of that river and just enjoying seeing the river flow. Just enjoy the movement of your breath. Notice how just simple awareness to your breath slows it down. Now move our attention to the lower belly or the lower dantian, the center of gravity of your body. Just taking an inhale into the lower belly. As you exhale, just relaxing your belly. Really soften the belly. Think of doing less effort. Just focus on relaxation. Inhale, belly up. Exhale, belly goes down. And see on the next exhale if you can just gently prolong the exhale. It shouldn't seem like effort. If it's stressful, then just go back to your normal breathing. Gentle inhale and gentle exhale. Thank your breath. Thank yourself for just coming back to your body, coming back to your breath, honoring your breath no matter how it is, understanding that it's sacred. It's more than air, the energy on air or prana keeps you alive. Thanking your breath, maybe deciding to connect with your breath without trying to change it at least once a day. And now gently bringing some movement into your hands and your fingers, your toes. And bringing some gentle light movement in your body, twisting your body if you need to, opening your eyes whenever you feel ready.
Wow, that was very soothing. Thank
Good.
you. Needed that.
Excellent, excellent. No, I'm glad. Yeah. Good way to start somatic astrology. Start with the somatic practice.
Yes, of course.
Okay. I guess with that, we can start off with, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Shikha, is to, I think if I, and you're going to be playing the teacher, I'll be playing the student, which is that, for any beginner who wants to learn astrology, the main thing is what is a birth chart? What are the components of a birth chart? Like, what does it entail? And I think a lot of people go on these apps and will, put their stuff in and they'll get this kind of stuff. But when I started learning astrology, I really liked just seeing the chart. Like, go on AstroD or whatever and just get your chart and then learn what are the components of the chart or what is a birth chart. So I'll just start off there. If you can just tell us what is a birth chart.
Sure. A birth chart, I remember you telling me this last year, is that it's it's a picture of the sky at the time of our birth. And for there are various theories on why this works, but the thing is, it does work. And I've collected enough data to prove myself wrong. Like, I was looking for data that'll prove that no, this is wrong, this is not real. But I stand corrected and humbled. It works, and that's also something I would like to talk about maybe later in this episode or sometime in future episodes as to why it works. But yes, as a birth chart contains the quality of the time that we were born in. For example, if you listen to music from a certain era, it contains a quality of that time, of that era
Yeah.
in it, right? Movies, or any media,
Mm.
any form of art. Very similarly, the reason why the timing is important is because that moment in time contains a quality of the world uh, and our soul at that time. That becomes the foundation for how our lives will unfold, but with a lot of free will. Of course, it's not absolute free will, but there are choices that we can make as our lives unfold. This is a blueprint. Um, and a lot of approach, especially in this part of the world, in Vedic astrology, we have treated a birth chart like a prison. It's
Leica?
like a prison.
Mm,
Like you're born with what you're born, and there's nothing you can do about it.
yeah.
You are this, or this will happen to you. Like that is especially for people in this part of the world. I think that is very important to move away from viewing a birth chart as a prison and
Mm,
really understanding that living in alignment with your chart liberates you. It actually increases your capacity to respond
mm,
in ways that are aligned to your growth instead of setting you back. And that a birth chart can actually set you free. It's not meant to like cage you. So that's a birth chart. And we can talk about the components of a birth chart or astrology in general, there are three major things to talk about, and then a lot of other things will come up as we go along. But the components of a birth chart is that a birth chart is circular in Western astrology, not circular in Vedic. And Vedic, like squares and
Yeah,
rhombus, yeah, right. But I practice evolutionary astrology, which might be considered Western, but it's actually based on like the Vedanta. Like Jeff Green came to India and learned from Indian astrologers, and his entire methodology had come to him in a dream. He was also very anti-astrology. He was a
yeah.
convert, so all of that's there. So the birth chart, according to even Carl Jung, itself is a mandala.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there's a lot of overlap between alchemy, astrology, and mandala as a form of um, developing self-awareness. And
Mm,
that's why the planets also in a birth chart as transits, they move around in circles because like a mana, you keep going in circles, but it's actually not circles, you're spiraling. It's a spiral.
spiraling.
You're like evolving in spirals.
Mm,
Each round is supposed to like take you to the next level. So as a circular chart, as a mandala itself, it is split into 12 houses. And this is the absolute basics. I think a lot of people who may be listening in may already know this, that there are 12 houses. But for those who are just starting out, we want to make it like that basic for everyone.
yeah,
And people who already know will also get to understand houses in a very different way because this approach that I have been following, based on natural archetypes,
yeah.
it a lot of the archetypal interpretations are known, but these interpretations are really rich. And what natural archetypes do is they correlate the house with a sign and a planet.
Yeah.
So we won't go into planets and signs in depth today because become a really long conversation. We have to split this. So we'll start with the houses. The 12 houses. And is it possible for us to
Share,
project?
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to pull up a chart?
Yeah, just pull up any chart. Um,
Should we pull up somebody's chart? Should we pull up my chart?
go for it if you want to, but we can just pull up like some dead well-known person's chart because maybe it's not information you may want to put out there
Sure,
for
yeah. Who do we
everyone.
put in? Jeff Green's chart?
A lot of energy harvesters out there, as we have learned.
Yeah. Should we pull up
Yeah.
Jeff Green's birth chart?
Yes, let's do that.
What's his birth date? January, what chart?
I have his. You can just like type Jeff Green
Yeah,
birth chart.
I'm finding it. Yeah, it's December 2nd, 1946. Let me see. It's pulling it up. And yeah,
Sagittarius
I have
Sun.
it on AstroSeek.
Oh, nice.
Okay, yeah. So let me share this screen. Okay. Okay.
Oh, perfect. Do you just want to click on the button
Yeah,
on
yeah.
your
Give me one.
screen left? Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So this is a typical birth chart, and as we can see, it has been divided into 12 houses. And we start with the first house is on the left, on the eastern horizon, where the ascendant is, right? The
Yeah.
ascendant or the rising sign is the sign that rises in the east as we are born.
Yeah.
And yes, it is believed that the archetype of the ascendant represents what the soul actually wants to um, be known as in this lifetime. Like it's actually chosen by your soul. A lot of the placements in a chart is not always chosen by us because they represent our past life karmic history. But the ascendant is believed to be chosen by the soul. Like as a Libra rising, your soul chose for people to view you as someone who values harmony, relational harmony, peace, justice, fairness,
Got it.
beauty. Yeah. So that's
And
something
then
that,
in this case, this is the first house, right?
yeah, he's a Scorpio rising.
Scorpio rising. Oh
Do you
wow.
see the first house with ASC written on top?
Yes.
Yeah. The
Right there.
ascendant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
there are
what.
12 houses, and these 12 houses represent 12 areas of life.
Okay.
Um, a- and these houses themselves are archetypes, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And we'll also talk about what archetypes are. I think that was something we had briefly touched upon in our last conversation, and that was not that was a while
Mhm.
ago. And I did read Carl Jung the way his work was meant to be read, which is in the context of astrology. Huge disservice that has been done to people who've actually studied Carl Jung without knowing that he studied astrology for like 55 years of his life. And
Wow.
his daughter became a professional astrologer to just assist him because he had like immense astrological requirements.
Wow. So,
He has
okay.
also passed though.
What, do we know? I know it's just a little segue. What age did he start studying astrology? Because I know he did
Uh,
not start off with astrology.
He was 36 when
He's
he
36.
started. Yeah, not like, yeah, and he studied for 55 years. He died sometime in his 80s, so that adds
Interesting.
up.
Yeah.
Not just astrology, he just started getting into like depth psychology itself at the age of 36.
36.
And he drew mandalas every single day.
Just like you. Excellent.
Not every single day though, and I mine are more decorative. He is like more explorative. But yeah, it's good to know that the synchronicities I had with him.
So this is just to go. This is the first house, and the houses go one, two, three, in this direction.
Yeah, they go
This-
counterclockwise.
They go counterclockwise, and here it says like this is the ascendant, and then there's something called IC, DC, MC.
Yeah, yes.
What is that?
So the four lines that are like older than the rest of the house
Yeah.
divisions we see, the ascendant, and opposite that is a descendant.
Okay.
The ascendant is so it is a it's a circle of 360 degrees.
Yeah.
And if you start from the ascendant, it's 180 degrees to the descendant. So what happens is the first half of that circle represents ourself.
Okay.
And whatever transits we have happening in the first 180 degrees of the planet's movement
Mm-hmm.
also reflect the need for us to develop ourselves and assert ourselves and find our way in the world.
Mm-hmm.
What happens from the descendant to ascendant, the other half of this
Yeah.
chart, that is a social part of our lives. So it's a dialectic between self and the other.
Got it.
The ascendant is yourself, the descendant is the other.
Got it.
And which is why the descendant is the cusp of the seventh house. And the seventh house is very popularly known to be the house of the other, which includes partnerships, but not just restricted to like intimate partnerships. It is any one-on-one connection, like how so you're interacting with someone, and in that moment, that person is they represent your descendant.
Okay.
So that's like a larger symbolic meaning, and it's not just restricted to partnership.
Got it.
So
So 12
ascendant,
houses.
descendant, yeah,
Ascendant
they
is,
oppose each other.
yeah.
And the opposition is a very important aspect in astrology. We'll talk about aspects in another episode, but just to say briefly, like 180 degrees is called the opposition because you have two very different energies
Yeah.
that need to be integrated. So the self versus the other, that is ascendant versus descended. Then IC and MC.
Yeah.
IC is Imam Koli and MC is medium Koli. I don't know. I don't remember. I've
Mhm.
always just called them IC, MC.
Mhm, mhm,
These are also points. The MC is the highest point of your chart. The IC is the lowest point of your chart. But what
mhm,
they mean is the IC is your private self and the MC is your public self.
mhm.
So IC is the cusp of the fourth house, and the fourth house represents, we'll talk about that, our private lives, our family, home, ancestry, inner security. This is what we keep private. Um, and the MC, which is the opposite, again, it's an opposition of the private versus public, fourth house versus 10th house. And 10th house is our public life, external life structures, what we do in community.
Which is what
So,
we normally we is popularly like MC or midheaven is called like
yeah,
the career house of career or
yeah,
something like in popular
yes,
astrology. Okay.
yeah. So these are the four most sensitive points in a chart. And any placements that you have in these houses, first house, fourth house, seventh house, 10th house, are very important. especially if they're very close to the cusp, they're conjunct the cusp. Like we're looking at Jeff Green's chart right now, and we see that he is Scorpio rising. You see his ascendant.
Yeah.
We've got the signs on the outer circle, and he's a Scorpio rising.
You mean
So to
this
the
one?
world, yeah. I don't know if you're using a cursor because I can't see one.
Oh, okay. You can't see cursor. Okay, no
Yeah,
worries. Okay.
but that's okay. We see ascendant on the on screen left,
Mm-hmm.
and that's in the sign of Scorpio, the Scorpio rising. So to the world, he appeared as someone with a lot of depth. Scorpio is known for its depth. Um, they're not shallow. So, and Scorpio is like naturally drawn to shadow work. So it's not surprising at all that he was a Scorpio rising.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And we also see that his Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter are also conjunct his ascendant. But okay,
Yeah.
that makes me getting sidetracked with planets. We're not going to do planets today. Let's
Yeah.
just do houses. And if we have sufficient time, we'll get into planets. Okay, so the first house is a house of self. I'm just gonna get my notes here.
And I'm
Okay,
gonna get a shawl. Give me a second.
no problem.
Okay. First.
So, yeah. The first house is the house of self,
Mm-hmm.
and it is the same archetype as the sign of Aries and the planet Mars. So they represent the same energy, the same archetype. And yeah, what is an archetype? Um, Archetype, from the very classical Jungian point of view, is the fundamental constituent of our consciousness. That's an archetype. Um, and like we can think of archetype very simplistically as the hero or um, the wise old mentor. We see these stereotypes in most movies, right? Especially in Hollywood movies. They're very standardized archetypes. There'll be like a young protagonist, and there'll be a mentor, and there'll be a love interest, and there'll be an antagonist. So these are all archetypes. But basically, they're the fundamental constituents of our own consciousness and unconsciousness. But that is a very like that is reading Kalian diverse from astrology
Yeah.
because and metaphysics, quantum physics, all of that together, because he synthesized everything together to explain that archetypes are actually fundamental constituents of the universe's consciousness itself. Because the universe's consciousness is our consciousness. We are the universe
Mm-hmm.
experiencing itself. And archetypes are, they exist in the environment around us. They exist below the split between mind and matter in the quantum level. And we have so much research that's coming out now talking about how quantum physicists are able to actually create subatomic particles out of nothing, like out of like creating matter out of space.
Yeah.
They've begun to do that. And how these atomic particles, they exist in all possible states in the quantum field until they collapse into certain forms of reality. So think of archetypes as energies of the universe existing at that level. And when they're activated by transits or your chart in general, they manifest both inside us psychically and externally as physical events. So the archetype of Mars, which is also Aries, which is also the first house, when it's activated, it manifests inside us as the need to assert ourselves, the need to take initiative, the need to solve problems, just being a natural leader in its um, in its light expression and its natural expression. In its shadow expression, the same archetype can manifest inside us as aggression, selfishness, and have like wars and violence in our environment. That's an outer physical manifestation of the same archetype. So this is so much deeper understanding of archetypes because we'll be using this term a lot, I think every other minute
Okay.
maybe. So we're just going to go through the archetypes of these 12 houses. And the first house is the house of self. The sign that is there on the cusp is in the starting of the house, right?
Okay.
That determines how we show up in the world in that area of life. So for Jeff Green, the sign on the cusp of his first house is Scorpio. So the
Okay.
way he discovered his identity, his self-discovery, the way he asserted himself, the way he took initiative in life, they were all very Scorpionic. So they came from a place of a lot of depth, lot of you know uh, non-negotiable engagement with power, desire, fear, death, shadows. So that's how he presented himself. That was his way of understanding the world and discovering the world for himself and creating his identity. And this is very unconscious. All of these things happen very unconsciously, right?
Yeah.
For you as a Libra rising, the way you discover yourself in the world is in relation with others. That's very important to you.
Yeah.
Someone who has Aries on the cusp of the first house, they'll be more, for them, discovery of themselves uh, in in the world is more self-centered, and they're the least probably relational. You might
Yeah.
find, yeah. Uh, so that is the first house, the way we discover ourselves, how we build our identity, how we assert ourselves. And then we go to the second house. Second house is the house of Taurus. First house is the house of Aries. Second house is the house of Taurus. And it's the same archetype as Venus. Venus is the ruler of both Taurus and Libra. In Taurus, Venus implies self love. And in Libra, Venus rules love for others. So Taurus is the house of like work. Your Venus is work, both our material worth and self worth, our finances, our values, art. Taurus is very artistic and very sensual, like it's because it's body based. So the bull, like Taurus is the bull. It represents the body. In terms of house, especially the second house represents finances and work, possessions, finances, self worth. Uh, like I said, the finances and material possessions are the external manifestations of this archetype. The psychic and internal manifestation is our own sense of worth.
Mm.
So here, like Jeff Green has Sagittarius. After Scorpio, you'll have Sagittarius. It's the arrow sign, the red one.
Mm-hmm.
That is Sagittarius on the cusp of the second house. So for him, his sense of worth came from truth seeking. Sagittarius represents the eternal pursuit of higher truths, the truth. And that's where he found his self worth.
Got
So,
it.
yeah. I have Libra on the cusp of my second house. So, for me, my worth has always come from how I relate with others.
Mm.
For you, if you are Libra rising, next will be Scorpio. For you, your self worth comes from shadow work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
It's
So,
very
that's,
true.
yeah.
Very true.
Mm.
Okay.
The second house is the house of Taurus. Then we go to the third house, and it's the house of Gemini because we're moving in that direction. Aries,
Yeah.
Taurus, Gemini, Cancer,
Mm-hmm.
Leo, Virgo, so on. So the third house is the house of our mental processes, the mental maps of how we research, how we collect data, how we make sense of things. It's the categorizing mind. That's the house of Gemini. So research, analysis, communication. This is the third house. But very specifically in terms of a house, it also represents that immediate environment. Um, Gemini is the immediate environment, is polar opposite. Sagittarius is well known for long distance travel. Gemini is more short distance or immediate environment. It's
Interesting.
more research, researching our constantly scanning our internal and external environment to make sense of the world. It's naming things. It's data and classification, also called, unfortunately, the lower mind. And that
Interesting.
stings a little bit as a Gemini.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Mm. So that's the third house. Um, and the third house then leads us to the next, which is IC, the fourth house, the house of family, of ancestry, karmic ancestry, home, your physical home, and internal home, your inner security. So, like the second house, the external manifestation is your finances and your car and home, or like your property or whatever. Right? Fourth house can manifest externally as family members and or people you live with, your physical home,
Yeah.
and same archetype inside you is your sense of security. And it's the same archetype as Cancer and the moon. The fourth house represents Cancer and moon, because the moon represents our emotional security. Just give me a sec. You were getting cold. I'm getting a little cold too, so I gotta. So we see Jeff Green has his moon in the fourth house, and his fourth house starts at Aquarius, the green sign. You
Yeah.
see, yeah. His third house starts at Capricorn, so his mental processes, his communication was like very grounded, high in integrity. That's Capricorn. And the fourth house starts at Aquarius, so um, he Aquarius is a sign of authenticity and unconventionality. So very radical. He was so um, like if you've seen his videos, right, like the way he presented himself, like he didn't give a fuck. He was like smoking
Yeah. Yeah.
in his seminars and drinking or whatever, and just being authentically themselves. And that's where he found emotional security.
Hmm.
You have Capricorn on your fourth house cusp. So you actually find emotional security from structure, not from chaos. You need structure, and reliability is an earth sign. So being grounded is very important for you to feel emotionally secure. So this is how the houses manifest for us based on the sign that's on the cusp. But when you have planets in that house, they become more important,
But
right? Yeah. So that's the fourth house. Then we'll move into the fifth one, which is the house of Leo and the Sun, the same archetype as Leo, Sun, and the fifth house are the same archetype, and they represent our need for creative self-expression. The Sun is our life force and our life purpose, and the fifth house represents that. How do we creatively express ourselves, and that may or may not be artistic. Like when people think creativity, they can think of it rigidly in terms of just the arts, but it's not just the arts. Anything can be creativity, which is why the fifth house is also the house of children, because it was literally creating them.
creation. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a house of Leo, so it's a house of joy. Anything that gives you joy is creative self expression, children, romance. It's also the house of like dating. So that's where the fifth house is about joy, creative self expression, shining your light.
Hmm.
That's the fifth house. So it's a fun house. And then here we see he has Pisces on the sign um, of his fifth house, which means he was a very loving dad. I mean, I know his daughter, I don't know if she ever gets to see this, Deva Green. She sent me that book on natural archetypes because
Yeah.
I was looking for it. Um, but yeah, I'm sure her experience of her dad must have been someone who's very sensitive, because Pisces is so sensitive.
Hmm.
He must have been a very sensitive parent and very sensitive in his self-expression, his creativity, the way he pursued joy in his life. There's a lot of sensitivity, compassion in him. Um, and we'll talk about one other thing. Okay, we'll come back to that later. I'll tell you. Okay, from the fifth house, we move into the next, which is the sixth house, the house of Virgo. And this is the house of health and service, of self improvement, of purifying things, discernment, analysis. This is the house of Virgo. And the sign that you have on this cusp will tell you what your daily routines are like. Virgo is the mundane, okay? Like Leo is joy, fifth house is joy, creativity. And Virgo is like the daily drudgery. And I'm a
Mm.
Virgo rising. So, yeah, Virgos are not known to be fun, but we do all the grunt work, which makes the world run.
Yep. Yep. That's true.
So, Virgo is about it's represented by the Virgin, not because Virgos are virginal, but because there is a need to improve things, to purify things, to reach that purest state. So, that's the sixth house. And it represents what we do for our daily health, our work routines, and the sign you have on it will describe. So here we see Jeff Green has Aries on the cusp of his sixth house, which means the way he went about his daily routines was quite fiery, maybe,
Hmm.
very assertive, very initiative, very explorative, and also very impulse based, because that's Aries is very impulsive. So he might have been like, oh, I'm going to do this routine. I'm going to do this for my health today. I'm going to take care of my health in a different way tomorrow. And just like impulsively trying to organize his day. It's how we organize ourselves, basically, the sixth
Got it.
house.
How you organize yourself. Okay.
Yeah. So from Aries, first house, Mars, we come to the sixth house, Virgo, ruled by Mercury. Mercury rules both Gemini and Virgo, which is why Gemini and Virgo are also the smartest signs.
Okay.
This Mercury is the smartest planet.
Good to know.
Yeah. Uh, so this is the first 180 degrees of this circle, which is ourself. And from Virgo onwards, the shift starts to happen towards the other, because Virgo is about service to others.
Interesting.
But yeah, but Virgo serves others not because that's what others need, but Virgo has a need to like serve and the need to purify things. That's why. So the real engagement with the other starts with Libra, the seventh house, the descendant. And okay, I'm still a little cold. Like, please. So the seventh house, we discussed the descendant earlier. It is the house of the other, how we present ourselves. And you will find, because there's an opposition between the ascendant and descendant, the sign that is there on the ascendant, the opposite, its polarity point will be on the descendant, right? So how you actually, how the world perceives you and the kind of relationship you are drawn into or how you are in relationships will be its polar opposite. For example, we see Jeffrey here in Scorpio rising. So the world views him as someone who's very intense,
Yeah.
very deep, right? But in relationships, he's Taurus because the sign on the cusp of his seventh house is Taurus. So he'll
Taurus.
actually be someone who's very stable, very grounded, not really that intense. And Taurus has intensity, but it's not compulsive,
Mm-hmm.
but also very possessive. So he might have been a very possessive lover.
Yeah.
So that's Taurus. Um, and similarly for you, you're a Libra rising. That's why we think of the ascendant as a mask, right? Because it's not our
Yeah.
real self. Our real self is also who we are with others.
Yeah. There's
So if you are a Libra rising, what's the sign on the on your descendant?
I don't know.
What's the
Uh,
opposite of Libra?
I don't know, dude. Opposite of Libra is I.
Aries.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's Aries. See, all those basics. I don't know. I need like a chart in front of me. Okay, so it's Aries.
Yeah.
So while I come off the mask that I present, the way that I engage with the world in that sense is a very balanced and a very like diplomatic, politician-ish kind of person, sees both sides. But in relationships, I'm very Aryan, which is very aggressive, impulsive.
In shadow. Yeah. Not
In shadow can be aggressive, impulsive. Uh, what would be the other things of Aries? I guess would be taking the
like
initiative,
quite
like
either
independent.
initiative, you like someone who like pursues boldly,
Yeah,
or also in his natural expression is very like initiatory, very assertive.
sort of
But in shadow, it's not just aggressive, it can actually also be very fearful.
very
It's
fearful.
two extremes. The
That's right.
healthy self-assertion is in the middle, and
Uh-huh.
the other extremes are like becoming aggressive versus giving away your power types. Like, so that's the, but like people think of you as someone who's very relational, but in relationships, maybe a little self-centered.
Interesting. Wow, that is. Thank you for exposing me there. But I would say that that is pretty apt. That has definitely been. I think I've been in the Aryan shadow in relationships for a long time, also, or at least not for a long time, but for parts of that, I've definitely noticed that, which was also the discontent of some of my partners, was that, hey, look, the world sees you as revolutionary doctor and you're very balanced with people around, which I was. I would be able to be very objective and but when it came to relationships, it wasn't the same energy. So I'm curious about that because that's very interesting to know that I have that tendency. I mean, I know that now, but I like how that presents. Like, the way you're with the world, you might not be like that in your one-on-one
Yeah, like
relationships.
I'm a Virgo rising, and I might come across as someone who's very judgmental or very discerning,
Yeah.
But I have the opposite sign on my seventh house, cusp, which is Pisces. So actually, I'm very confused and foggy in relationships, but
Int-
also compassion. I'm not that critical, but earth signs are known to be like, we get disgusted easily. We like judging everyone all the time. But in relation, it's the opposite. Like, I should have better discernment, but that Pisces fog, like, oh my God, like, what am I doing here?
Interesting. Okay.
So
That
that's
is
the
so
opposition
fascinating. That's so
between
fascinating.
ascendant and descendant. Yeah, it's really fascinating. And it just tells you that everything, again, the same thing, the yin yang or balance of polarities. That's basically what evolutionary astrology is. Like it's a constant balance between the polarities.
Yeah.
So that's the seventh house, the house of one-on-one connections, of partnerships, of harmony, relational harmony. And yeah, that's Libra's natural home, Venus's natural home. And we see here Jeff Green has Taurus on the cusp of his seventh house. So he must have been a very reliable partner, but also someone who might have been very possessive and might have stagnated, sort of. Sorry. Then we move into the eighth house, which is the house of Scorpio and Pluto.
This is the most fun house, right? This is the chillest
Yes.
house. This. Okay. We're
It is
joking.
my favorite archetype.
This is your favorite architect.
It is. It's Pluto, Scorpio, eighth house, they're my favorite archetype. Because Pluto represents a soul in evolutionary astrology, and all of us have Pluto somewhere. So that intensity of Pluto is something that all of us have. It's just the degree varies by what sign Pluto is in, by what house Pluto is in. I know people who are Pluto in Scorpio in the eighth house. Okay. And
Wow.
the power can be immense and the shadows can be very destructive. And I've seen both. It's in its shadow form, it is like you should run in the opposite direction from this archetype because in its shadow, it's like very toxic.
Mm,
But in its natural expression, it's extremely regenerative. So the eighth house is the house of death and rebirth, right? Of transformation, of the phoenix process. And we have to think about in what situations do death and rebirth happen. And that's what the eighth house represents. Death and rebirth happen in liminal spaces. That is an in between space between knowing and becoming. Like when you are half asleep but also awake, that's a liminal stage. And you might have noticed that that's when you have some of your deepest thoughts.
yeah.
The time between like just before it becomes morning and dusk, like not night and day, but even transition period during dusk or
Mhm.
dawn. This is when, even in terms of witchcraft and rituals, it's recommended to do at these times because the veil is thin.
Well, it's 10, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, during this time. So that's a liminal phase. That's when, again, you might have some of your deepest thoughts that transform you.
Interesting, because that is also like for for meditation, or for any kind of like like reprogramming your subconscious, or when I was even trying to like let go of fear inside me in many ways. I remember learning this, that this was the time, is when you're going to sleep and when you're just waking up, when you're not here or there, when you're in that transitory phase, is when the veil is thin. And so what thoughts enter, like what you consume at that point or what you tell yourself is more likely to get imprinted, because your subconscious is more accessible at that time. It's
Yes.
interesting because that's what I'm also thinking in terms of, like, I don't know, meditation, or in terms of going deep within somatically. Like, that's also eighth house in that sense, because what we're trying to do is to go into the subconscious, is to like go deeper to achieve that kind of state where the veil is thin, I guess. And I'm sure that can happen through, you know, uh, can happen through substances. People do that, I'm guessing, right? Can happen through sex. It can happen through, what do you call, these kind of experiences, a lot of like healing rituals where we see that people are able to access that, which is there. I'm just building these kind of things. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, is
Yeah,
that eighth
it
house?
is. These are all liminal spaces during which transformation happens, where the old self is dying and the new self hasn't been born. And that's a very difficult phase to exist in. But that's just what transformation is painful. Growth is painful. And deep intimacy is another liminal space where like two persons are trying to merge, but you cannot obviously fully merge. But there is, you exist in that in between where there's you and there's someone else, and there's an in between space. That is deep intimacy. That can be psychological, can be sexual, like you said.
Yeah.
That's also where death and rebirth happens. Like, can cause transformation. Sharing resources, merging your resources, psychological, intellectual, emotional, financial, sexual, all of this can cause you to transform. So it is the deepest house. Scorpio is the deepest zodiac sign. Pluto is the deepest planet. So, and they represent our soul in non-negotiable need to engage with our bottom line. And the bottom line is always about power, desire, fear, life, like birth, sex, death, and rebirth.
Yeah.
That cycle. So it's each of these houses it represent a lot of different aspects, and it's not one. And the eighth house, I think, its range is one of the widest in terms of what where transformation can happen. For
Interesting.
people with eighth house placements, are will- they will be just in general very intense, very maybe also very secretive. In their shadow, they can be very secretive, manipulative. But in the natural expression, there's the ability, resilience is like immense. They will die and be reborn, die and be reborn. They're always going through that phoenix process, especially when transits will activate the eighth house. So,
Because then
but yes,
that's the thing. It's like, again, this is personal for me, obviously. For people who don't know, I have a stellium, eighth house stellium, and my sign
you
is.
should explain what a stellium.
I'm sorry.
You should explain what a stellium is for
Yes.
those who
So
don't.
stellium is more than three or more planets in a particular house, which just basically brings a lot of energy in that house, in that direct energy in that house. And yeah, like in so I've what I've seen in popular astrology in general, eighth house is called the house of intense shit, house of intense stuff, right? And somehow it also has a negative connotation where it's like, oh, this is like dark and this is like bad, or this is like unhappy, or this is like pain. Even when I think of eighth house, I can easily go into that kind of realm, thinking about it like that. But just when you explain this, and even when I sit with it, obviously it's more than that. It's not just death; it's rebirth. Also, it's not one or the other; it's both. Uh, Anyways, for me personally, eighth house is went from being something that I was like, oh my god, to be like, oh yes, this actually expands experience of life and everything, like, and the power for because I do feel like it's just death and rebirth for me. Like, I'm not the same person I was even 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I'm not the same person that I was. Like, it's just multiple different lives. And that's something which people say that you should write a book about your life, because I was in the army and then I was here. And then my old friends meet me and they're like, who are you? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, it's kind of like been like that, death and rebirth, transformation constant, which I
Yeah.
guess is, it can be a lot for a lot of people. Or, everyone, maybe sometimes I'm like, man, maybe it would be pretty chill to just be like this. But then I know that that's not something that I don't know what that is like. And I kind of like this in that sense. It has it has a deep purpose. So, anyways, eighth house people, maybe we need to like expand our acceptance and understanding of what the eighth house is.
Yeah. Let's not give the 8,000. Like I said, it's my favorite archetype because this is where shit is real,
And so
right?
it is really, yeah.
Yeah. All and the thing is, that's all houses, planets, signs, all archetypes. They have their natural expression, they have their shadow expression, and it's not the shadow expression. It's not fun for any of these signs or houses. Their difficult shadow expressions are difficult, especially when you are the one living it consciously or unconsciously, especially consciously.
Yeah.
Or to be on the receiving end of someone's shadows, that's also not fun. People think of like you said, there's a negative connotation. There's a negative connotation with Saturn also. Like people like, Saturn is
Yeah.
burdensome or fearful. Yeah, you will feel it's burdensome and fearful if you're not living in alignment with natural law. If you're living in alignment with artificial and man-made law, like if you're chasing ambition and like status and that corporate title, you're trying to climb the ladder, then Saturn transits will be very heavy on you. And even in Vedic, it, like Jupiter is considered the great benefic, and
Yeah.
Saturn is considered the great malefic.
Perfect. Yeah.
Uh, and this is just very reductive because Jupiter's shadows, Jupiter expands whatever it touches. So when it touches your shadows, it'll also expand your shadows. So then it's not fun. Like Jupiter's natural expression is great, a lot of blessings. It's considered, like the god of planets.
Mm.
A lot of positivity there. But in its shadow, it'll just expand whatever shadows you have. So it's not, they're all equally important. Like nothing is worse. But in terms of just sheer power, if you're just talking about the most powerful archetype, it is Pluto Scorpio 8th house. Like immense power. Like no other planet or sign or house is as powerful as it. This is like raw power.
The power.
The closest, maybe you think of Mars, Aries, first house. And Mars is also considered the traditional ruler of Scorpio before Pluto was discovered. So there are some similarities over there. But yeah, you should like own your 8th house stellium. Like
No, I
that's your
agree.
power.
Because I also realized like a lot of this, and we'll keep moving on. I don't want to keep like butting in, but I also realized like a lot of this, connotations which have been, I guess, put on what is good versus bad and what is positive, negative. So much has been shaped in the last like few hundred years by, I don't know, obviously capitalism, by patriarchy, by really focusing on just your own benefit. Like it's just the idea is that you are operating without any connection to other beings, to the planet at all. Like there's like this is all only for your gain. Okay, what can I, when will I make a lot of money? Like what do I need to do, like free myself from everything, without realizing that that won't be possible. I mean, we're witnessing that right now. That's never how things work. And I think that puts a lot of these connotations onto this is good, this is bad, this is that, and this is that, rather than understanding them as unique in their own ways. All are, you know, beautiful or whatever they are. And this is who you are right now in this lifetime.
Yeah, definitely. Like people's own, depending on where they are on the evolutionary journey, they might have experienced certain planets or transits as, um, you know, not very beneficial. They wanted to make a lot of money, and then you have a Saturn transit in your second house, and it will slow your finances
Yeah.
because Saturn's asking you to build authentic structures, and that requires slowing down and being patient and enduring. But
Yeah.
they'll be like, oh, no, no, then Saturn is a malefic because I do not
And
get money. So you're
yeah,
not going to get your bag.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's not the goal of life, like
Yeah, it's
that's like, that's, I guess, like that kind of redundant, I feel like, thing is what has, in general, also any other, like, any other science will always be like become will be reduced to almost nothing if it's viewed through that lens of just me, 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 me. Like nothing else matters. The world doesn't matter. I have no responsibility, or like, like there's no point of oppression isn't there. The planet is literally being burned to death. It doesn't exist at all. What can I do to make a lot of money? Like, what does that even mean, right? Like, you're not going to make sense of anything. Definitely nothing as nuanced and as ancient as astrology.
yeah. Uh,
Right, I think let's keep moving.
We
Because,
we also see like Jeffrey has Gemini on the cusp of his 8th house.
mm,
So communicating about 8th house themes,
yeah,
about shadows and power and death, rebirth, literally, because that was his life's purpose. Like he has, you see that there's some similarities also. Like some, I'll talk about the housing systems next and why right now we're looking at something called the Placidus system,
yeah,
which means that you can have two signs in a house. Like
yep,
he has Gemini and then Cancer. You
yep,
have Taurus and then Gemini. But basically, communicating about 8th house themes was very important to him. That's what obviously he did with his life, and that's
mhm.
what you do as well.
That's what I want to do more in my life. But
You
yeah,
already do. You're doing it right now.
I'm doing it right now. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So from the 8th house, we move into the 9th house. This is a fun house. This is the house of Sagittarius and Jupiter, and they represent the archetype of the eternal pursuit of truth. They're always seeking higher truth. This is the higher mind as opposed to Gemini's lower mind. I just cannot get over that.
You're both Geminis for people still
Yeah.
wondering.
Um, Gemini suns.
Gemini suns. We're
Yeah.
talking popular
So,
astrology lingo. So
um, so the ninth house is the house of higher truths, philosophy, cosmology, and long distance travel because it is about building your personal belief system, your personal philosophy through, you know, exploring philosophy. Um, Even astrology is part of the ninth house. So it's a fun house. And like Jupiter and Sagittarius, of course, they have their shadows, and we will talk about that in depth later because it can cause dogma. The ninth house can cause dogma. But otherwise, it's more or less like just the house of intellectualism, basically.
and this is where he has a stellium. I see that.
He has Saturn and Pluto over there.
Saturn and Pluto. Wow.
Yeah. So he has Cancer on the cusp of his ninth house. You see the sign of Cancer in the blue over there.
Mhm.
So his motivations is like exploration of philosophy was about finding emotional security. That was what's driving his search. And he has talked about this in one of his videos. It's on YouTube where he says the archetype of the moon and Cancer, or any planet that makes an aspect to the moon, or if they're in any planet that's in the sign of Cancer, they always represent the search for inner security, which is why his entire approach to evolutionary astrology has been about finding inner security.
Yeah.
That's what drove his cosmology, his personal belief system, his philosophy.
Mhm.
That and having Pluto there, we will talk about like the Pluto method maybe in one of the episodes soon. But it's very significant where we have Pluto in our charts. So he went through like death and rebirth, cycles of death and rebirth in his personal belief system, like in his grand philosophy.
Mhm, mhm.
So it being same thing, right? Someone who was very anti-astrology, and
Yep.
then a dream literally converted him.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And then we move into the 10th house, which is the midheaven or the MC, the medium Koli.
I think yeah. Yeah. I think something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the 10th house is the house of Capricorn and Saturn, and they represent our external life structures, which typically take the form of careers, but not necessarily. Like you can be a homemaker and you still have a 10th house. So it's what we do in public, in community, and what are the life structures we build with a lot of endurance, patience, developing skills. That's how our career should be, right? We develop skills and have a career based on those skills
Mhm.
instead of becoming managers or whatever the fuck capitalism is getting us to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the house of Capricorn and Saturn, of building a personal authority, which comes from like building a skill over a long period of time. That's how you build personal authority, which is natural authority. And in its shadow, of course, it becomes ambition, like dark ambition, or like chasing authority over others, becoming authoritarian, totalitarian. All of that can also happen in the shadow expression of Capricorn and Saturn in the 10th house. But basically, very simply, it's just what we do in public.
You're in pop.
And from the 10th house, we move into, oh, wait, just a sec. So Jeff Green has Leo on the cusp of
Mhm.
his 10th house, which means the way he appeared in public was someone who's very charismatic. He was building life structures for his creative self expression because Leo is very creative. And it was very important for him to find joy in his career. And yeah, he seemed to always like light up whenever he's like talking about evolutionary astrology, just bringing that Leo fire into his public life. So from the 10th house, now we move into the 11th house, which is the house of Aquarius and Uranus. And this is the archetype of cosmic community, authenticity. Uranus, Aquarius, they don't conform. They don't feel the need to belong. They just understand that by being their unique selves, they automatically belong to the cosmic community, to the universe itself. And they'll find that right, which is why people who have strong Aquarius placements will find that they're very, people call them weird
Yeah.
or eccentric, but they'll just be like, they can be a lot of fun, but they're just so radically authentically themselves. And that's why it's also the house of friendship because, the idea is to not have to perform to make friends.
Yeah.
That's at least the
Interesting.
idea. Not a lot of people get to do that.
Mm.
Um, again, depends on like what sign do you have on the cusp of that house. But it is the house of community, friendships, and they also represent Aquarius represents like higher consciousness, um, trauma across lifetimes. So um, the planets until Saturn represent our conscious parts from the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn. These are the archetypes that we're very conscious of. We know when we feel aggressive or when we feel loving or when we want to like shine a light or when we feel emotionally insecure. This is very conscious. The planets and archetypes after Saturn, the ones that we can't see with naked eye, they were discovered later. They represent our unconscious. So Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, these three, but especially like all these are very deeply entrenched. These archetypes in the unconscious. We don't know when we're acting them out. It takes a lot of work to become conscious. But Uranus, especially, or Aquarius 11th house, this archetype represents like a higher consciousness. That is why Aquarius is very intellectual as well.
Mm.
So that's the 11th house. And then we come to the final house, which is the house of Pisces and Neptune, which is the 12th house. And we, this is like coming full circle. The first 180 degrees was about the self. Now we're doing 180 degrees from of the other, where we engage with the other relationally, deep intimacy, building our philosophy, like for personal philosophy, but that's something that we apply to then, the public and community. And we wrap it up with spirituality. The need to like merge back with the source, which is why this is the house of the subconscious, not so much unconscious, but more subconscious. It represents like the oceanic depths of our consciousness. Um, and it's very foggy. Like I remember Richard Tarnas had written this about Pluto and Neptune particularly, that they're unfathomable, which is why the range of what the eighth house covers is also very wide. Similarly, the 12th house of Pisces and Neptune, they can be unfathomable because it's very foggy. There's a lot of confusion in this house because there's a lot of spirituality, a lot of compassion. And when you become too compassionate, you lose discernment. And when you lose discernment, things start to get foggy. So it is about dissolution. This house dissolves our ego, where it's like getting high on psychedelics and realizing your ego dissolves and you see that interconnectedness among all things, all
Mhm.
living beings, and even inanimate matter. So that is a 12th house, which is why it's very spiritual. It's about transcendence and seeing the interconnectedness of everyone. Um, and being so compassionate that like imperfection also seems to look divine. This house of devotion. And yeah, I think that's about it. All the 12 houses. And some of these archetypes can be a little difficult to understand, but they
Yeah.
become easier when we start to understand them in the context of their signs and how and planets.
Cool. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like the chart that you have because that is helping me. And I'm seeing like, you know, there's definitely like I think I'm understanding this better than I have before. And I'm the way I'm also thinking is there is like a deeper understanding for the houses, like I think like reading or like discussing in rather than just trying to memorize because this is all connected to each other. That is probably what can help people rather than being like, hey, this is the house of relationships or this is the house of this. Like, no, you have to have like kind of relational understanding of why this is this. And so I like yeah, I used to find it confusing that, first house and then using the first house of the house of Aries and the house of Mars. Like, I found it hard because how do I memorize this? But I think if you understand it, eventually it'll all make sense. It'll all piece together.
And there's a sequence, there's logic to this. Even transits, when they start making aspects to our planets, what does 0 degree mean versus a 45 degree, 90 degree, or
Yeah,
100? It's like there's a lot of, at least in the Jeffrey method, like everything has purpose. Nothing is like
random.
included as it's what it is, like what a lot of what the Vedic astrology can be like. It is what it is. It's
Right.
not like There is purpose as and you have to understand, and it's always about evolving. There is no point of no return in evolutionary astrology. Like no matter, like you can be the worst person alive, and I'm thinking of Netanyahu. But even for a soul like him, there's nothing called a point of no return. Evolution is always possible. And as we move in these circles as a mandala, inner and inner and inner, like you keep going to the center to find
Mhm,
yourself, and also gonna do it.
mhm, mhm. Okay. No, well, thanks for sharing that. Uh, yeah, for some reason, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I feel like some people are beyond return and they,
Yeah, I know.
in,
Oh, I
you
mean
know,
that is the. I'm just like objectively telling you what's
yeah,
there in the text. Personally, I'm petty. Like I don't like. I want him to suffer.
yeah, 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 exactly. Like, I know you, but I understand what you're saying is that, we wouldn't be in this situation maybe if uh, such kind of shadows were not allowed to be, you know, to flourish in this way and cause so much pain and destruction. Uh, okay, cool. Yeah, I actually don't know. I'm like just sitting there. It makes kind of sense. I appreciate this first class on what are the different houses, the 12 houses, and how they kind of circle
Yeah,
and what the themes are. Uh, but yeah, do you have any other, like, what do you call things at this point? I think this is like good for like a first.
yeah. But there's so much to talk about, but it really requires an integration period. Like you've heard these things, you just sit, you should look at your own chart before the next episode, like when you get the time. So that then, you correlate it with your own experiences. And yes, this is how I show up in this area of my life. Like I
Mm,
have Scorpio on the cusp of my third house. So my communication is also very investigative. It is intense. I like to go deep. I cannot do superficial, but like Gemini is known to be superficial. Like the third house is house of Gemini, but I have Scorpio on the cusp of this house. So
mm.
I'm not a superficial Gemini. So like please don't stereotype Geminis.
Stereotyping, yeah. I know that evolutionary astrology seems a little more complicated than traditional Western astrology. When I started studying it, where I was like, oh, okay, my first house is this. I have this planet in this, which is also like very useful.
Mm,
Uh, but I guess your recommendation for people who are interested would be to sit with this and to look at their own charts and
yeah,
to kind of see what signs are in, that could be kind of like homework. Like, hey, just look at what, uh, and your houses are on what cusp of which sign,
yeah.
right? And then try and see that how that makes sense.
Yeah. I do want to talk about housing systems for a minute, though.
Yeah.
Uh, there are two most popular methods that are used currently. There's the whole sign system and the Placidus system, and they can make a lot of difference in the way you interpret your chart. Um, so the whole sign is where each of the houses, they just start from like 0 degrees of your ascendant to 30 degrees, because each sign is of 30 degrees in the chart, 360 divided by 12. So even though you are 20 degrees Libra rising in whole
Yeah.
sign, your first house will start at 0 degrees Libra.
Okay.
Second house will start 0 degrees Scorpio. So a lot of astrologers do use whole sign because it makes things cleaner, it's easier,
Easier. Yeah.
uh, it simplifies things, especially when you're making interpretations or predictions for masses like on social media. It's understandable why someone would use whole sign. Personally, I don't use whole sign. I stick to Placidus because Placidus is a more sensitive way of dividing. So it literally divides your chart based on what the highest point uh, of the band of the planets, or the lowest point, the MCIC, actually is at your birth, the exact degree of your
Right.
ascendant
Okay.
at your birth. And what Placidus does is then you don't have an entire sign in a house. You will have two signs. So your first house starts at 20 degrees Libra, then it ends at 30 degrees Libra. And then you'll also have some Scorpio, which is why you have Pluto and Scorpio in the first house. And I recommend people who want to become really specific with their experiences to go with Placidus. But if you're just starting out and it feels a little confusing, you can go with whole sign. But I think whole sign for me has doesn't resonate as much
That was resonant.
because in whole sign I have 10th house stellium, Gemini stellium, and not ninth house. And the difference is huge from
Mhm.
cosmology to career. Like, I know I'm not, uh, my career does not mean so much to me as like my personal philosophy does. That can, you won't have an eighth house stellium in whole sign, it'll become ninth house.
It'll become 9,000, yeah, and that just
And that doesn't seem right, right?
that
That's it.
doesn't seem right for me at all, yeah, and which is
Yeah.
oh, I guess this is what's happened because when I'm looking at different apps, they show different stuff.
Mm,
I'm guessing they might be using different house systems.
yeah. There are so many house systems, there's so many more. Jeff Green uses Porphyry, which is another, it's a different system. But the like my recommendation for people would be to go with Placidus. But at the end of the day, it is about what resonates with you,
Yeah,
because astrology is not a causation
yeah.
relationship. Planets are not actually causing; the archetypes are causing, and we have successfully mapped the archetypes to certain planets. But whatever resonates with you is basically it's your language to interpret your reality. So I just wanted to make that point about the two houses housing systems.
Well, no, thank you.
But
Uh,
it's a lot, so yeah, we can end here
yeah.
and absorb. Maybe listen to this episode again
Yeah,
once.
let's see. This is definitely going to be for beginners, but also little people who are already into astrology and want to learn about evolutionary astrology. I'm guessing like they'll be like, okay, I'm interested. I guess in the next episode we are going to explore archetypes. Is that the main thing?
Yes, let's move to planets in the
Move
next
to
one.
planets. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
planets and
Cool.
science together. Yeah, we'll just
Planets and
combine.
signs. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay,
Well,
so
thank
we'll
you for that.
see.
Thank you for this
Yeah,
lesson. And we'll be mixing it up with like somatic work.
somatic.
Yeah, we're mixing up with somatic work because interestingly, I think the astrology is the idea being that as above as so below, right? As below so above. So we're talking about the above things, but the below is in our bodies, right? And we can explore archetypes in our bodies. Absolutely, we can explore our own purpose in our body.
Medical astrology. They
Yeah,
actually
medical.
match the
Exactly.
somatic practices.
Yeah, exactly. Medical astrology. And there are texts on that, and it's deep, and we've lost a lot of you don't have the lineage now anymore of and in that way there are people who do that obviously but uh anyways I think the process of exploration is probably what we should continue to be engaged in.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'm so glad we picked this up again, and I
Yeah,
look forward to the next one.
sounds good. Okay, well,
Well,
I
bye
will
then.
bye, see ya, take care, bye.